I guess it's ultimately not a bad thing that these are the conversations that people are having, because it shows me that the discourse has moved in such a dramatic fashion that you look to like a relatively older Jewish guy who was the New York City comptroller who divested from certain Israeli investments. And you're still like, well, it's not far enough. It's true. It's true. It's not far enough. Clearly, his reinvestment into Elbit Systems calls into question whether or not he is sincere. But it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that you now have like Gavin Newsom saying, I will never take $1 from AIPAC. I'm saying it.
Hi, Brad.
Good morning. Great to see you.
Brad Lander is running.
This community means everything to me. It's where Meg and I raised Marek and Rosa, and where we've worked together for years to make life better for our neighbors.
Brad rooted out waste and corruption.
Divested billions in fossil fuels.
Built housing New Yorkers can afford.
Saved 50,000 families from being kicked out of their homes.
When Donald Trump and Elon Musk tried to steal $80 million from New York City,
Brad caught it.
and when ICE agents started kidnapping our neighbors, I fought back.
Keep fighting, Brad.
Take a look at this video. It's Brad Lander being arrested by ICE.
I've always believed that you fight for the things you love. And I love this city. I love the streets where I walked my kids to school, the public schools that nurtured their curiosity, the fields in Prospect Park where I coached them.
I'm not going to be sold on Brad, but if he wins, I don't care too much. I like Brad Lander. Like I said before, in the absence of Zohran Mamdani, in that primary, in that crowded primary for New York mayor, I would have probably gravitated towards him. Like, it's just he has a lot of good qualities. And before people say he's a literal October 7 Lieber, brother, I think you need to understand. I think you need to understand a couple different things, okay? And yes, I know that everyone, especially this community, is going to get very mad about this. But you are forgetting what he did as a Jewish human shield for Zohran Mamdani in the primary. Okay? Like, you're crazy. He did what Elizabeth Warren did not do. And not only that, but as the comptroller in New York City, he literally divested New York City from Israel bonds. So what the are you talking about? This is a real don't make perfect the enemy of the good type of situation, because given the confines of like permissibility in American politics, he absolutely has been pushing the needle in the appropriate direction, regardless of his own limitations and his own ideology. If he wasn't doing shit like that, then yeah, you would have a little bit more room to complain. And it would be valid. And it's still valid to a certain degree to apply a level of scrutiny. But ultimately, this is like, if every liberal Zionist is going to be invested in divesting from Israeli bonds, then, who gives a shit?
They're Little League games. But most of all, I love the people who make this city what it is. So, I'm running for Congress because the challenges we face can't be solved with strongly worded letters or high-dollar fundraisers. And not by doing AIPAC spitting in a district that knows our safety, our freedom, our thriving is bound up together. Our mayor can have an ally in Washington instead of an adversary in his own backyard. At a moment of dark oppression, we can shine by fighting back together. While the oligarchy drives an affordability crisis, they shouldn't be able to buy a seat in Congress. While our neighbors are being demonized and attacked, we can put our bodies on the line to protect them. New York is for everyone. In the words of a man who knew a thing or two about loving their neighbors, love isn't a state of perfect caring, it's an active now. I know it's corny, but I love the idea that democracy is just neighbors working together to make our lives in common better. And okay, I'm biased, but I think we do it here better than anywhere else. I'm Brad Lander, Dad Lander, Councilmember Lander, Comptroller Lander, and it would be an honor to serve you as Congressmember Lander.
Did you see his Twitter account was hacked shortly after you posted this vid? Yeah, I did. So, a couple things, okay? Couple things. He is he is running to unseat a horrible representative. Okay? So, you have to also match it against like who he's going up against. You also have to match it up against who the other people are. Okay? New York 10, the seat New York 10, the 10th district, is currently occupied by Daniel Goldman. Okay? Dan Goldman. Now, there is some, hate to be this guy, but your setup is still in dispatch mode. Wait, no, it's not. You mean like as my thing is in the top right corner? Yeah, it's because I don't have a chat on because I'm dual casting the Bilibili as well. And also because if I put it in the top, in the bottom right, it overrides the subtitles. Yes. Yeah. Dan Goldman Sachs Goldman. Dan Goldman is among the wealthiest members of Congress with an estimated personal net worth of up to $253 million. I mean, he's absolutely horrible. I actually kind of dig not having chat on screen. I'm gonna be honest with you. Is that messed up? I feel like chat, as much as I love my community, as much as I love my chat, and I'm still monitoring it, they do get in the way quite a bit as far as like derailing. I feel like this is one of those moments as well. But in any case, as I was saying, this Santa is going crazy. I feel like the motion detector extended for some reason. I don't know what happened because it was not moving before as much. And now it's just moving nonstop, bro. He's just constantly, he loves Brad Lander. He is dancing his ass off. He's jiggling nonstop. You are not Candace. Put chat on, please. Anyway. So, yeah, Brad Lander is running.
Now to voters decide. Tonight, New York City Controller Brad Lander officially kicked off his congressional campaign. It appears to be part of a wider progressive effort to build on the momentum of Zohran Mamdani's election victory. Andrew Ramos has the story from Brooklyn.
Comptroller Brad Lander is setting his sights on a new job, running for Congress in New York's 10th district, announcing to a packed crowd at the Nighthawk Cinema Theater in Park Slope he will fight, not fold, embracing what he called Mr. Rogers energy.
But a Mr. Rogers that stands up and fights ICE, and fights Trump, and fights Musk, and fights kleptocrats, and fights AIPAC, and says this is our...
Can they take out Goldman is the question I have. Oh, yeah, no, he's going to... I think he's going to cook. I think he's going to clear Dan Goldman. Not even a question. I mean, this community's excitement about Brad Lander is utterly irrelevant, in the New York race. Like if we're being real, I think he's going to rip him. I think he is going to dog walk Dan Goldman.
Our neighborhood. Lander would first need to unseat fellow Democrat Congressman Dan Goldman, highlighting the one of many issues he says that sets them apart.
Dan Goldman.
But only I, of the two of us, recognize that Netanyahu's leveling of schools and hospitals and the destruction of Gaza was a war crime, is an ongoing war crime.
In recent months,
Brad Lander isn't DSA, right? No, he left DSA after October 7. There's no official confirmation that he left because of October 7, but he did leave around that time. But he was a lifelong DSA guy. It's true. Is he running against a DSA candidate? No. So there was going to potentially be a DSA candidate running in this district. Okay, there was a DSA endorsement that had been given to a candidate, but of course, after Brad Lander ran or announced that he was running, and then Zohran also endorsed him instantly, insta-locked the endorsement, and he secured all of the big players in New York around him, given his long, extensive career in New York politics. Alexa Aviez, who had actually gotten the DSA endorsement, who hadn't actually officially announced that she was running, who is a New York City Council member from District 38, said that she's not running. In recent weeks, I've received an outpouring of support from community members encouraging me to run for Congress. My neighbors know that the era of dark money and politics of letting AIPAC and the real estate lobby call the shots must end. They know we need a real fighter to take on Donald Trump's violent mass deportation agenda. I'm so grateful that many in my community called on me to run. However, after the conversations I had with my family and movement, I have decided that there is far too much to be done at home in Brooklyn and at City Hall. As a council member, I have been leading the fight to protect immigrant New Yorkers, building a greener, livable future and deeply affordable housing. We have an affordability agenda to win at home in Brooklyn. What's clear from my years in public service is that Dan Goldman has fundamentally failed our communities. A split field runs too great a risk of allowing him another damaging term. I'm not done taking on the corporate powers that have destroyed our city and country, but I've decided that my best use of energy is not running for Congress in New York 10. Thank you to my comrades in New York City DSA. The fight for a dignified city has only just begun. Palante. Council member Alexa Aviez. BDBD stream is down again? Huh. I wonder why. Let's see. Maybe it's politics. And if that's the case, then we just don't stream. Let's see. It could be because I'm showing like Twitter and stuff. And if that's the case, then we just won't. If if they have issues with like showing Twitter, yeah. If they have issues with like showing other like foreign websites and stuff like that, like specifically Twitter, then GG's, then I can't. Showing. Bro, she got mom Donnied. Can't make change too radical. Got to be way too pragmatic. Definitely would keep up the momentum. Why are you capitulating to government censorship? Capitulating to government censorship? It's a social media platform. And it's not a capitulation. Like, what do you mean? Every social media platform has rules. Some of them are dumb. Some of them I don't personally agree with. You're on Twitch, right? Right now, a platform that basically censored the term Zionist at the behest of the ADL. What should I do? Brute force it? What should I do? You just make do and you play ball. But yeah, we won't be. Why aren't you brute forcing your way through the platform TAS? Why are you always allowing yourself to get banned? It's not even a ban. I think they just like the admin takes the stream off. It is what it is. All right, we'll stop that destination. Hopefully it won't brick the stream at all, but boom, disabled. Okay. It's just us now. Anyway, where was I? This was the smartest thing to do for Lander in terms of next steps. Too many candidates saw New York 12 as an open ticket, layup, turning into a clown car. Now Goldman looks weak as hell and no one wanted to take a swing until now. Show us on the stream again, Unc? No. I kind of like the no chat on stream meta. Regardless, even though we're not streaming on BDBD any longer. No disrespect, but not seeing you guys is kind of good. I do feel like not seeing you guys on screen is kind of good for my mental. And I think partially when you're not seen on screen, you don't act out as much. Because when you're seen on screen, I think something happens in the chatters' minds where they're like, ooh, this is my opportunity to shine. I'm still pulling up chat messages, but I do think that not having you on screen 24/7 does something to your brain where you're like this improved the quality of chat messages by quite a bit. I feel like it improved the quality of the chat messages because people are like, well, it's harder to get his attention now because I can't be on screen all the time. So I feel like I have to really put out like an impactful statement, a good statement. Think before you tweet type shit. I feel like I've lost a mirror in which to watch my reflection in life. Anyway. Yeah. Get humbled. So, yeah. As far as Brad Lander goes, I'm happy for this. I'm happy for this announcement. I think that Alexa would have been fantastic as well. And there was definitely some wheeling and dealing behind the scenes, it seems, because Brad Lander was, I guess there was like some kind of, I don't know, like I don't know what the actual backdoor dealing happened in this instance, but I do think he's a good candidate for this seat. I think he's a good candidate for this seat. It seems DSA New York isn't happy about it. Yeah, that's understandable. I do think the less messy way to do this, I mean, look, paired up with the fact that Chi Ose got the chopping block personally from Big Z in order not to unseat Hakeem Jeffries, in order not to even take out Hakeem Jeffries. And the argument there was we can't exhaust our resources on this race when we have other races. And at the time, the other races that they were talking about, one of which was Alexa, right? One of which was supposed to be this one. Like, it's just like, it almost gives Zohran too much power over the DSA, which I don't personally like. But I'm not a part of New York City DSA. And he has been for much longer than I've even, I guess, or not much longer, but like around the same time that I started talking about DSA in general. So, bro, this guy is losing his mind. Top G and Keg W is not fun anymore. Put chat on. Please, man, why not chat on screen? Chat on screen is part of your stream experience. Without chat on screen, it's like a YouTube video. Put Bilibili chat on screen at least. It's standard in Twitch to have chat on screen. Chat is what makes Twitch unique. Yes, I am. Brother, calm down, dude. You are acting out. Facts to be fair. No, I know. You guys are all going to lose your minds. Okay. My man is tweaking. Anyway, let's continue.
Lander has become a firebrand for the progressive movement in New York City, which saw a jolt since the election victory of Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. Lander is one of several progressive candidates looking to primary their fellow Democrats in the 2026 election cycle. Bronx Congressman Richie Torres also facing a challenge, while two other seats have vying to replace Manhattan's Jerry
big
Nadler
ones.
and Brooklyn's Nydia Velasquez, who are both retiring, are up for grabs. Law professor J.C. Polanco.
If they were to win, they will just make the squad larger. And one of the dangers of having a larger squad is that you're going to have a situation in Washington where socialists are going to have a bigger voice and they're going to be tied to the Democratic Party.
A party that may
be what a dangerous prospect, dude. Yeah, no shit. That's the point.
Pivoting, according to Kai von Schroff, a senior advisor for the Institute for Education.
And he's one that I think actually really gave some good language to the idea that the party is looking for fighters, not folders, and he's one of them. So we'll see if he's able to win based on that.
In responding to Lander's run for Congress, Congressman Goldman said that he is proud of his progressive record in Congress and plans to deal with Brad as well as other challengers in the new year. Reporting in Park Slope, Andrew Ramos, CBS News, New York.
So, yeah, this is where we're at. And it'll ruffle a lot of feathers. Let's be real. Of course, it already has. It's pissed off a lot of people. I personally think it's good. I think it's good. It's not the best, but I think it's good. It's not as bad as people are presenting it. Especially, by the way, it's Aviles, not Avie. Stop adding an L to it. Sorry, it's a pet peeve of mine. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Aviles. I don't know, Lander. What are his cons? His cons are that he's not an anti-Zionist. He is what I would consider, I guess, like he is the best of liberal Zionism. A person that has actually used his political position and power to actively divest from Israeli bonds. And a person that actually, at a moment when it was more politically advantageous for him to over an anti-Zionist candidate, actually stood by his side. It was obviously good for him as well, as you are seeing. But as far as his cons goes, those are some of his cons in general. It's mostly around Israel, honestly. I can't really think of, that was actually awful of you, King. You didn't just do this. What? Oh God. I'm seeing that people are, no, I would say he's even better than Bernie Sanders. He has said that he is anti-BDS as well. So most of the cons come from Israel. But even though most of his cons revolve around the issue of Israel, he is so far above the average American politician. He's gone so far above and beyond the average American politician that we're going through the minutia. Like under Brad Lander's management, New York City public pension funds have seen windfalls from investing in Elbit, the Israeli military's primary arms producer. The second biggest pension fund even bought new Elbit shares in the past year as the Gaza war raged. Like this right here, the revelation could be awkward for Lander as he runs against Representative Dan Goldman on a platform that includes sharp criticism of Goldman's support for Israel. Lander told he was simply doing his fiduciary duty by advancing the Elbit investments. Like, that's actually a serious red line. That's from Chris Sommerfeld, okay? Under comptroller Brad Lander's management, New York City's public pension funds have seen windfalls of investment from Israeli arms manufacturer. I thought you said he supported BDS? No. He has actively said he does not support BDS. He did actually divest pension funds from Israel, though. So the New York Post headline is false. I oppose and always have opposed divestment from Israel. Our pension funds are invested in many Israeli-owned companies, but he did do that. So this is the shortfall. This is the shortfall of being a liberal Zionist who's also actively doing the most with the limited political powers that he has. He has done more. He has done more as the New York City comptroller, while simultaneously saying he's never been anti-BDS. Yeah, here is Don commends New York City comptroller for ending investments in Israeli bonds. Any city comptroller should divest from Israel bonds and from companies that profit from or contribute to Israel's unlawful occupation and abuses, Don said in a letter today to New York City comptroller Brad Lander. The letter commends the comptroller for ending the city's Israel bonds holdings and urges a review of remaining Israel-related investments to ensure compliance with international law, the UN guiding principles on business and human rights, and the city's ESG criteria. Like, I don't get that. Like, I don't get that position, though. I mean, yeah, because liberal Zionism is an oxymoronic ideology, okay? Because Zionism is a fascist ideology. So, of course, liberal Zionism is going to be inherently contradictory. And this is yet another one of those instances where that contradiction bears itself out, where you're like, oh, Israel's doing war crimes. You won't say, I don't even know if Brad Lander has called it a genocide or not. I think he probably has at this point. But this is the problem. Exactly. If you are not an anti-Zionist, if you are a self-described liberal Zionist, okay, but you are also simultaneously divesting from certain Israeli investments as the city comptroller, you are going literally above and beyond. You are going above and beyond, far more consequential in New York City than any other city in America, and also you have done more to advance this cause than other comptrollers have in other cities. I mean, we're not even comparing him to Dan Goldman in this regard. We're just comparing him to like the average city comptroller. So it places me in this unique position as well, where like on the one hand, I think this is a good step in the right direction and there is far more that must be done. Okay. But also on the other hand, he, because of his liberal Zionist position, he's like over here being like, oh no, I oppose and always oppose divestments from Israel. He has called what Israel's doing a genocide, by the way. Nice. What happened to Megaphonics? He keeps tagging Hasan and spamming in the chat. Yeah, because he's not able to see himself in the chat. I do think that personally, as a representative, given his current positions as a representative, I think with his active defense of, bro, I'm trying to send you, he's using 2 different accounts now to get my attention. Israel bonds is a specific investment, by the way. It's not a name for all investments in Israel. It's a specific thing from the state itself, which he divested from. So it's half true, half false. Yeah, I understand that. Calm down. This got he was spamming so hard, he got auto-modded for 300 seconds. And instead of waiting 300 seconds, he went in and logged in from the second account. Is he better than Jasmine Crockett? Are you kidding me? What kind of question is that? Yes. Yes, absolutely. Without a doubt. Like, come on. This is what I'm saying. It's not a second account. It's a DJ account. It's a Twitch DJ program thing. Okay, I'm focusing on chat too much again. Anyway, when Comptroller Lander took office in 2022, the city's pension funds held nearly $40 million in Israel bonds. By early 2025, the city had sold off at least 1.17 through the police pension fund, fully eliminating its holdings. Just as New York City divested from apartheid South Africa in 1985, this decision represents a historic continuation of the city's role in upholding human rights through responsible financial choices. Dawn's letter to Comptroller Lander highlights how investment in Israel bonds directly finances Israel's military operations and ongoing human rights abuses in Gaza and the West Bank. With major credit agencies downgrading Israel's credit rating since October 7, 2023, these bonds also pose significant financial risks to pension beneficiaries. Continuing to hold or purchase Israel bonds, Dawn emphasized, would violate international law and fiduciary obligations. The letter also notes that Israel bonds expose the city to potential legal challenges. Similar lawsuits have already been filed in other states where residents argue that such politically motivated investments breach fiduciary duty and put public funds at risk. By divesting, New York City has avoided these legal pitfalls while reintroducing its global reputation as a leader in human rights and responsible governance. At the same time, Dawn urged the comptroller to review the city's remaining $315 million in other Israel-related investments, including stocks and real estate, and to ensure all public funds are aligned with international law and ethical standards. Ending support for companies complicit in Israel's occupation and apartheid regime would bring the city fully in line with its obligations under international law and its own investment principles. Like, understand that the situation is seen as so radical, even though it's not, right? Even though it's basically a step in the right direction towards human rights. The comptroller that is replacing him has immediately said that he is going to redo this decision. Okay? And there are a lot of people who are asking, like, I cannot understand how it's possible to recognize Israel for what it is so clearly and still be a Zionist. Confusing logic. And the Allah, peki. Sen kapı orada, kumanda var. Peki. So the answer to that is a brain-breaking amount of social investment and brainwashing from an early age. That's it. We now live in a very different time culturally, a very different time in terms of our attitudes in general, a very different time with our attitudes in general, as far as our understanding and our association with Israel. Brad Lander does not come from that. Brad Lander did not learn about Israel post October 7. Do you understand? And as far as the old guard goes, if he hadn't gone, if he hadn't done shit like this, you know what I mean? If he hadn't actively defended anti-Zionists and said that they're not anti-Semitic, I'd have a lot more smoke for him. I'd have a lot more skepticism for him, even though a lot of his other positions are actually pretty good. Do you understand? Because an election is not won on one issue regardless. Contrary to what my naysayers consistently say, Hasan, you only care about one issue and that's Israel. I don't make this analysis when it comes to electoral politics. Okay? Israel itself is a pretty good way to figure out whether or not a Democrat is sincere, or a pretty good way to figure out whether a politician is invested in actually winning or leaning into public sentiment. Okay? But that in and of itself is not the ultimate marker of whether or not a politician is going to be a decent one. It's a litmus test, okay? This is something that I stress all the time, and maybe even people in my community misunderstand my position on this, okay? I guess it's ultimately not a bad thing that these are the conversations that people are having, because it shows me that the discourse has moved in such a dramatic fashion. Discourse has moved in such a dramatic fashion that you look to like a, relatively older Jewish guy who was the New York City comptroller who divested from certain Israeli investments. And you're still like, well, it's not far enough. It's true. It's true. It's not far enough. Clearly, his reinvestment into Elbit Systems calls into question whether or not he is sincere. But it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that you now have like Gavin Newsom saying, I will never take $1 from AIPAC. And a lot of people bracket Brad Lander's position in a similar vein, where they think like, oh, well, that, like with his background, with his knowledge, with his social conditioning, and with his actions in moments that mattered, right? In the New York City mayoral run, what he did as a comptroller, you still are like, no, this is the same as like Gavin Newsom's cynical attempt at leaning in the direction of popular sentiment by saying he hates AIPAC. All the while, there are still politicians who are running around saying Israel's our greatest ally, like Jasmine Crockett. Okay? Imagine telling 2021 Hasan everything which has transpired with the total collapse of Israel's PR and standing in the world and how many people are calling them out. Exactly. That's why it's like very difficult for me to feel hopeless at a time like this, It's cool. I'm glad that there are people upset about stuff like this. It's just not even a thing that I would have ever imagined hearing, even in this community, you know what I mean? As a self-described liberal Zionist, Lander was at one point in his career more supportive of Israel. A decade ago, he and other local politicians visited the country, even as he faced protests for doing so from groups angered by Israel's treatment of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. Now, and for the record, if it wasn't for people like this, if it wasn't for people, ironically, like, pre-mayoral run Zohran, who also I would put into this category of like pro-Palestine activists, this attitude would have never changed in America. Okay? So you have to remember that. If it wasn't for the brave Palestinians, first and foremost, who showed the genocide that they were experiencing, and then people who highlighted that and made a much larger fuss about it in the Western world, like the conversation never would have moved. The needle would have never moved in this direction. These guys are saying this stuff about Israel because it's not popular opinion to support Israel. It's just politics. Do you feel vindicated for how culture has shifted on Israel? Yes, I do. Now Lander is honing his anti-war attack line against Goldman, as he has already secured an endorsement for his campaign from incoming Mayor Zohran Mamdani, whose November election was boosted by a wide win in Goldman's Lower Manhattan and Brownstone, Brooklyn-based 10th Congressional District. A longtime critic of Israel's treatment of Palestinians, Mamdani has said he believes Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. Lander is among a few number of allies who could capitalize politically on embracing a similar stance, but the Elbit investments could complicate that. Why are people disliking him but liking Bernie, though? Are you kidding me? People in this community hate Bernie Sanders. No. People in this community have more smoke for Bernie Sanders than I do. I mean, I'm very critical of Bernie Sanders' position on Israel, while I still recognize the space he occupies in American political discourse post-2016 primary run. But there are a lot of people who literally self-identified as socialists because of Bernie Sanders, who now literally act as though Bernie Sanders is the number one op, okay? There are plenty of people who do this in this community especially. Are you kidding me? And I also understand the cynicism from a lot of people, though, okay? Because there is still so much more work to be done. It's somewhat of a joke whenever I say, like, oh, it's not enough. It's not enough that, 30, 40% of people under the age of 35 want to remove all funds to Israel, remove all support to Israel. It's not enough. That's partially a joke, but it's also real. That means that there is still more work to be done. The pension funds holdings in Elbit exceeded 1.5 million. The new records show that's part of the roughly 300 million Landers' offices previously had the funds hold in total various Israeli companies. The records show the city's second largest fund, the Teachers Retirement System, which covers pension payments for public educators, controlled the biggest chunk of the city's Elbit stock, holding over $1 million in company shares as of its past June 30th, the most recent date for which detailed data is available. That marks a 268% increase over the just shy of 280,000 the TRS fund held in Elbit a year earlier on June 30th, 2024. Disclosures show about half of the increase between 2024 and 2025 can be attributed to the value of Elbit stock surging, but the remaining chunk of the TRS Elbit growth in that period came from purchase of new shares per the records. The comptroller is the custodian of the city's 5 pension funds and, with advice from the boards, executes investments. As of June 30th, 2021, the last disclosure from before Lander became comptroller in January 2022, the city's pension funds held less than 250,000 in Elbit stock total. So this directly contradicts any sort of anti-Israel initiative because Elbit's stocks went up because of the genocide. Elbit is an Israeli weapons manufacturer. So looking at that and saying, well, their stocks went up because Israel's doing a genocide, or even if your position is Israel's doing war crimes, right? Even if the liberal Zionist position is not to acknowledge that Israel's doing a genocide, even though it very clearly is doing a genocide, that is the UN position. That is just the unconditional position to take. That's not even a position at this point. It's just a reflection or a recognition of abject reality. On the other hand, you're still directly recognizing that genocide has actually improved the stock prices of an Israeli weapons manufacturer, and you think it's a wise investment to make. It's up. The IDF has been accused of using Elbit weapons in strikes that have killed Palestinian civilians during the war in Gaza launched in response to Hamas' October 7 terror attack. Several European governments have divested from the arms producer in protest of its supplying of the IDF. Asked about the Elbit holdings in his interview with the News, Lander suggested the comptroller has very different responsibilities than a member of Congress, and that the pension fund investments must, by law, only be viewed through a fiduciary lens of securing maximum returns for city government retirees. It's still bullshit. You don't bring your politics to the job of investing for the pensioners' money, and I have not. He also argued, like, let's be real. There is a little bit of politics in that situation. There is. What I mean by this is if you didn't have as the comptroller, you do put the city funds at risk when you don't divest from Israeli stocks such as this one. You put the city potentially in legal trouble, right? So there is an argument that you can make to divest and to not increase funds in Elbit systems, right? So the notion that this is just a fiduciary responsibility is a little ridiculous. It's a cop-out. Still, the Elbit holdings highlight an issue Lander has struggled to find a clear lane on. During his unsuccessful mayoral campaign, Lander told the Progressive Group in early 2025 the pension funds weren't invested in any Israeli government bonds after being asked how he could, as comptroller, put pressure on Israel to end the war in Gaza. The funds at the time actually held more than $1 million in Israel bonds. Still, following Lander's claim, the group, New York Progressive Action Network, endorsed Lander's mayoral run. Speaking around the same time to Zev Brenner, an Orthodox Jewish radio host, Lander struck a different note as he affirmed he remains opposed to the boycott, divest, and sanction movement that calls for pulling money out of Israel over its government's treatment of Palestinians. In that appearance, he specifically touted the Elbit investments. The New York City pension funds are proudly invested in many Israeli-owned companies, tech companies like NICE Ltd, Elbit Systems, Mobileye, Teva Pharmaceutical, and no, of course, we're not going to divest from them, he said. Again, what is this? I feel like people are unproportionately holding politicians against the wall who are moving the needle in a positive direction when U.S. politics is a majority APAC. Aren't you always saying change happens slowly? I do say that. But also, you have to still call out inconsistencies. I mean, come on, chatter. This is a major inconsistency in the way that he has communicated on this issue. Also, this is still, at the end of the day, a primary race that's coming up. When can you criticize politicians, you know? It's just, the thing is, like I said, the biggest scrutiny to Brad Lander will still come from the Israel lane, even though overall he has, I think, done a bunch of things that he did not have to do that you know, played a role in Zohran winning, right? So having said that, this inconsistency is of course a significant one, but we haven't even talked about all of the other. Hold on, what the fuck is this? We haven't even talked about all of his other positions. I mean, he's great on ICE. He's great on defending immigrants. He's great on defending trans people. He's great on every other issue. Okay? That's just the truth. He's talked about also divesting from, I believe, BlackRock as well. Like, he's pretty good. He's as good as it's going to get for a left politician in the Democratic Party, especially when you compare someone like him to who he is slated to unseat, which is Dan Goldman, who is dog shit, right? Yes, I would say he is, in essence, a progressive through and through. He could literally just step aside and let someone else run who isn't an elderly Zionist. Okay, well, you don't get to make these decisions. The reality is, you know, this decision has been made before we could have a say in it. Are you going to run? He's also not elderly. So he's fairly young for a politician in America, that by American standards. Like, what the In 2015, while serving as a city council member, Lander went to Israel with other lawmakers on an all-expenses-paid trip. At the time, Jewish Voice for Peace, a local group that backed Mamdani for mayor this year, had called on Lander and the other council members to cancel the visit, writing in a petition, "Do not neglect their official responsibilities toward diversity by touring an apartheid state." At other times, Lander has said he's not doing enough to push back on Israel. "I know I have not done enough to speak out against Israel's war crimes, against ethnic cleansing, against forced starvation of Palestinians," Lander said this September, while appearing alongside Mamdani at a Jews for Racial and Economic Justice event. A Goldman rep declined to comment on the Israeli pension fund investments under Lander. A spokeswoman for Mamdani, who endorsed Lander's congressional run in conjunction with his campaign launch, didn't return a request for comment. In any case, this will definitely come up quite a bit in his race. It certainly will. Also, matching his actions in 2015 to his current perspective is obviously silly. Now let's take a look. Do you agree with Zohran Mamdani? Mike Lawler grills Brad Lander on Mamdani's Israel
called
comment.
Yourself in 2016 a Brooklyn Jewish Democratic Socialist. And so my question
Hillary
to you is...
in that article, just to be clear.
My question to you is, what is your relationship with the Working Families Party of New York and the Democratic Socialists of America, New York City chapter?
Of the Working Families Party, I am a member and a donor. Of the Democratic Socialists of America, I am not a member or a donor.
Do you support the DSA of New York City?
I'm not a member or a donor to the DSA of New York City.
There is a lot of overlap between the DSA of New York City and the WFP of New York. Do you support the work of the DSA of New York City?
And what is this, a McCarthy commission? Like, what is happening? Is the McCarthy trials like, oh, have you, like, there's no reason to be vague here. Just be like, yeah, I used to be a card-carrying DSA member. What of it? He should just be like, yeah, I'm still a card-carrying member of the DSA in my heart, in my soul. Like, this kind of stuff is so strange because it is creating unnecessary tension around the term Democratic Socialist, is creating unnecessary tension that literally does not exist as it stands currently, especially in a place like New York. This is in September 10th, 2025. It's just like, it's not a thing. It's not a thing anymore. Okay. So I think it makes you look vague and somewhat cowardly when you try to dance around it, especially when you have called yourself a democratic socialist, and especially when you are a part of the DSA. Also, it's Lawler. You could say whatever the you want to Mike Lawler, and you would look good in comparison because it's Mike Lawler that you are talking to. Anyway, let's continue.
There are things they have proposed that I have supported, like raising the minimum wage, and there are things they have proposed that I do not support, like BDS.
Okay. So with respect to BDS, and I'm glad you brought that up.
So this is the reason why I'm like frustrated, because it gives more, obviously, like, if we're being real, although there is no official confirmation, is October 7 is the reason why he left the DSA, most likely. Okay, because the timing of his departure from the DSA was right after October 7, 2023. That hasn't stopped him from aligning with the DSA. That hasn't stopped him from working with DSA-backed candidates, including Zohran Mamdani. But having said that, and he has not rejoined, and his public position as an anti-BDS is silly, because someone like Brad Lander could play a major role in expanding the conversation on stuff like this. He is a prominent Jewish politician, okay, from New York. I mean, or lives in New York for what, like the last decade? I believe he's from Chicago originally. Like, it's just, there is no reason to concede on this stuff, especially at a time like this, when every single inch in the direction of positivity for any kind of fuck Israel sentiment or any kind of initiative like BDS is a good thing. And it might feel like you're taking a bold stance, but the reality of the matter is that bold stance will pay dividends in the same way that it did for Zohran.
The DSA of New York City just adopted.
Could someone define BDS? The BDS is boycott, divestments, and sanctions on the state of Israel, because Israel is an apartheid state that is doing a genocide. Okay, it's demanding boycotts for companies that financially support the Israeli occupation. It's demanding divestment from pension funds and funds like that actually support the Israeli government and the Israeli occupation and the continued apartheid structure. And it is a demand to push for sanctions on the state of Israel, which is an ethno-state that is, once again, an apartheid state doing a genocide. It is the same exact peaceful movement that played a formative role in forcing apartheid South Africa's hand into becoming a social pariah, becoming an international pariah, and basically dissolving the apartheid in South Africa. Okay? Not only is it directly protected under the First Amendment in the United States Constitution, okay? It is literally a First Amendment protected act to make these demands. The Israeli lobby, specifically AIPAC, has written bills in 37 states in the United States of America that has made it illegal to retain a job while simultaneously being an advocate for BDS. This is the most severe First Amendment violation in this country, and yet no one talks about it. Rarely do you ever hear about it, okay? In a state like Texas, for example, if you want to be a public school teacher, you literally have to sign a loyalty pledge to say that you will never support boycotting Israel. You'll never support demanding divestments from Israeli funds. You will never support demanding sanctions from Israel if you want to have a job. It is crazy. It is a direct violation of the First Amendment, and yet it continues in this country. Okay?
Resolution as part of this national convention. They want to expel members who do not comply with their extremist views, and specifically anyone who supports Israel's right to defend themselves. Do you oppose that position in their platform?
Yes.
Okay. Zohran Mamdani, who you support for mayor, is fully endorsed and embraced by the DSA of New York City. And in fact, just the other day.
Maybe he's not conceding and simply just doesn't want BDS for Israel. No, he doesn't. And that's wrong. That's ridiculous. Okay, that's ridiculous. Oh, Israel's a fascist ethno state that's doing a genocide, but also they should, continue to operate like a normal country is a ridiculous position. Why would Israel ever stop doing the fascist genocidal shit if there are no penalties for it? BDS is the most effective non-violent movement against the state of Israel. And the very fact that this is a non-starter for so many people in positions of power is mind-boggling. Like, what are you supposed to do? What the fuck are people supposed to say and do? Okay, I guess we can't criticize Israel. We can't protest against Israel. We can't demand sanctions against Israel. What are we supposed to do? It's just illegal to say anything mean about Israel. Okay? You're just not allowed. Israel can do whatever the fuck it wants, and you can't say a damn thing about it. It's the bare minimum.
Today said that Israeli bond investments violate New York City values. Do you agree with your endorsed candidate for mayor that Israeli bond investments violate New York City values?
So I am the fiduciary for New York City's investments, and I make those decisions based on that fiduciary obligation. First, I'll broadly say I don't support BDS, as I said. New York City's pension funds under my watch have over $300 million invested in Israeli companies. We do not have Israeli bonds.
Like flexing this as though it's a positive is so crazy to me. It's so ass. Like, it's so ass.
Because we do not broadly have foreign bonds in other countries in Canada or England or France.
Do you think Israeli bond investments violate New York City values? Do you agree?
Yes, just say yes.
Agree with Zohran Mandami?
My job as controller is not to assess alignment.
It's a pretty straightforward
this
question
is actually
that you
important.
as controller should be
I
able to
have a
answer.
fiduciary duty to figure out best risk-adjusted
Gentleman's
return.
time is
Okay, so you slightly support
Gentleman's
that.
time has expired.
I did not think that the
I just want to know if you condemn the phrase globalized intifada as a call to violence against Jewish people.
I've made very clear on occasions that when I hear that phrase, what's ringing in my ears is violence.
I hate this discourse so much. This is his worst. This is the weakest shit. You're not evaluating Lander correctly. He's acting out of principle here. He is someone who truly doesn't support BDS himself personally. He's not making political calculations. And with him acting out of principle, there's plenty of good, like supporting Zohran and fighting against Cuomo. But he also has sincerely held beliefs around Israel that we disagree with. I know. That's why I'm making the correct assessment here and saying his beliefs around not supporting BDS is dog shit. Even the fact that he says, like, oh my God, when I hear globalized intifada, I think violence against Jews. Dog shit. It's ridiculous. Okay? And when that chatter says politically, of course, supporting or not supporting BDS is a political calculation. What chatter means is that he's not actually being insincere. Okay? He's not being, like, this is something that he truly believes. He truly thinks BDS is bad. And he is refusing to change his position just because it'll win him favors. And my anger here is I don't like his sincerely held beliefs on this issue. Okay? Yes, it's wrong. What's his reasoning for saying BDS is bad? I don't know. I haven't examined why he defends it, but I suspect it's the same thing. Like even an actual anti-Zionist who is Jewish living in Israel, Ofer Kasif, was fearful about BDS. Even Norm Finkelstein initially was like anti-BDS. His position has changed throughout time. And part of that is because a lot of Jewish people think BDS means like, oh, it's just going to target every Jewish business. Okay? And that's the issue. They think legitimately this is like pre-Holocaust Nazi initiatives. It's wrong. Okay? I don't agree with it. It's wrong. It's ridiculous. But it's not an accident that there is a shit ton of like actual anti-Zionists who are also critical on BDS or were critical on BDS. And I think their positions have moved. Do you see what I mean? But it's not for the record, it's not because they they have this like sinister secret position where they're like, actually, no, I really do want the genocide to continue. I really do want the apartheid to continue. They can have a sincerely held belief on this issue that's just wrong, okay? Unless you think Ofer Kossev is not like a real anti-Zionist, or unless you think Norm Finkelstein is not a real anti-Zionist, and they personally think like you have to keep helping Israel. Like if you think that that is what it is, well, you're wrong. And Brad Lander is not an anti-Zionist anyway. He's a liberal Zionist.
Against Jews in the Second Intifada and unfortunately here in the United States recently.
So you condemn the phrase?
It's like, it's one of those things. He's like the last true liberal Zionist. Because virtually every liberal Zionist at this point has become like a Kahanist. Okay? Or they've become anti-Zionist. Brad Lander has been like, no, I'm just going to stay this lane. I'm just me and myself and we're staying in this lane for some reason. Like post-October 7, liberal Zionists went in two directions. A lot of liberal Zionists basically were like, actually, you know what? I love Itamar Ben-Gvir. You know? A lot of them went in that direction. Some of them were like, yeah, this shit's... I actually realized, like, this is totally unacceptable. Totally... I'm an anti-Zionist now. YOLO. Brad Lander and Bernie Sanders and some others are the last Japanese soldier still fighting in the Philippines 39 years after World War II ended, okay? For liberal Zionism. They're just in the trenches like, no, no, no. Especially for... then why are you treating him differently than Biden or Kamala? It feels like you're telling us to do lesser evil voting, which is bullshit. Chatter. This is a problem. If you think Brad Lander's position on Israel is identical to Kamala Harris or Biden, you're insane. Like, it's still bad, but like, there's varying degrees of bad. That's why I'm comparing him to Bernie Sanders and not Kamala Harris or Joseph Robinette Biden. It's crazy. You sounded like a disappointed father for a second, because I do feel like that sometimes, because chatters do lean into that same, chatters lean into the same exact like black and white unnuanced thinking when it comes to stuff like this. And that is unironically one of the biggest, that is unironically one of the biggest criticisms that this community gets from the outside. And it frustrates me when I see people leaning into the outsider community memes. We do not, under any circumstance, have to adopt the cynical framing of our enemies, okay? We are capable of thinking about things with nuance, please.
It's like a yes or no question. You're either for it or against it. It's given what you said, I assume.
I make clear that I think when people use it, they are saying open season against Jews.
So we should do everything we can to get people to stop using that phrase, correct?
I wouldn't want a law against the phrase. I guess what I would say when you say everything we can do, I make clear how I feel about it and what I think when I hear it. Would I want a law saying it was banned? I would not.
So you think we should allow that, and you think we should discourage it or condemn it? What do you think we should do on that phrase?
God, I fucking hate Gottheimer so much. Brother, animal, okay? Gottheimer is such a ginormous piece of shit. So is Lawler. And Gottheimer is not even a Republican, okay? It's just so strange that it's so strange to me that Josh Gottheimer, who is a Democrat from New Jersey, and Mike Lawler, who is a Republican from New York, are so invested in this that they are actively daggering Brad Lander, who is already a liberal Zionist himself. Okay? They're actively harassing him here because of his allegiances to Zohran and they're so invested in this that it's just like, oh yeah, why don't we want to make globalize the intifada illegal? Lander's already done too much by saying he doesn't like it, but they want him to go even further and make it illegal amount. I know, it's just insane. This is part of the reason why I think Brad Lander should be more aggressive and lean into one side of this argument. Okay?
Just don't want anyone, you won't even condemn the phrase? Even if you say we shouldn't have a law, do you condemn the phrase globalized intifada?
I mean, I've made very clear how I feel.
It's just a
about
yes or no,
that
man.
phrase.
It's not that hard.
But when you say anything we could do, are you saying that you think there should be legislation that would prohibit
This question,
people
sir,
or
I reclaim my
criminalize
time. This
people?
question is, do you condemn the phrase globalized intifada? It's a simple
Tell me what
yes
you
or
mean
no
by
question.
Just say you don't condemn it, man. Jesus Christ. Anyway. Globalize the uprising. Yeah, if you say globalize the uprising, all of a sudden it doesn't seem so political, right? God damn it, this Santa busting ass over here is annoying me. Globalize the uprising. You just don't like it because it's an Arabic word and it scares you. Okay, that's it. I hate this like entirely cynical bullshit hand-wringing narrative over globalize the intifada. I hate that Zohran also leaned into it. It's so frustrating. It's so annoying. It's so fucked up. And any politician in a position of power should not be conceding to this if they are even remotely progressive. Okay. Hasan conceded the chat's framing. No, I'm not conceding the chat's framing. These are my own personal positions. I'm still, having said all of this, I'm still happy about Brad Lander, regardless of all of this that I've just explained to you, because Brad Lander still is infinitely more progressive than Dan Goldman. On the issue of Israel, however, this is his weakest aspect. Okay? And I think he needs to lean into a consistent position on this that actually follows human rights. Okay? Bro, we're never getting a perfect candidate. I mean, it doesn't matter. This is not even like getting a perfect candidate. I don't give a shit about that. Anyway. Head is looking especially tiny today, my liege. Yeah, because the hoodie that I'm wearing literally has shoulder pads on it. Here is Daniel S. Goldman posing for a smiling photo at an AIPAC event next to a MAGA Republican. I wonder why he hasn't posted about this on his own account. If you want to understand the guy he's going after, this is the guy he's going after. Okay? Why does the word Zionist get auto-modded in this chat? It's not auto-modded in other chats. I wonder why. Perhaps because this chat is the reason why the term Zionist and then whatever you want to add next to it became a censored term on Twitch. So it is for your protection. I didn't get banned for it, no. But they tried to actively get me banned for it. The ADL. It's very annoying. All right. Oh, yeah, there's more on this. Dan Goldman. Also, Dan Goldman didn't endorse Mamdani, voted with 212 Republicans to censure Rashida Tlaib, joined 148 Republicans that expressed disgust at South Africa's ICJ genocide suit, suggested attack killing 100 plus waiting for food was Hamas narrative, didn't trust number of kids killed in Gaza. Absolute weirdo. Absolute psycho, okay? Basically Randy Fine, but knows better than to say all Palestinians are animals or something. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't go that far publicly. So that's who he's unseating. I mean, he is far above and beyond in comparison to him, by my estimates at least. But even then, the position that he occupies, I think would, and the worldview that he claims he has, a humanitarian, a progressive, implies that he should be far, far better on the issue of Israel. Okay? Anyway. Hasan Reactions is one of the best ones in the React channel.